When I was a kid, there were many anime that I stumbled upon late at night in the hum and glow of a tube TV. A lot of times it would be on one of the many late night anime programs that the Sci Fi Channel would run over the years. Sci Fi used to air anime. The same place I would discover things like Akira, which led to a lifelong fandom over Katsuhiro Otomo, Demon City Shinjuku, Neon Genesis, or maybe even the total madness that was Dead Leaves. My parents would probably already be in bed, and I may or may not have snuck out of my room to watch things I was most likely too young for at the time. Of those would be the story of a young pop idol leaving behind her group and forging through into acting, reluctantly going down paths that begin to break her apart and make her question if this is what she really wants. While at the same time, she discovers a website where someone details her life and poses as her. People around her begin to die, and all the while a strange man stalks her. As the story progressed, I remained glued to the TV, and I couldn't turn away until the conclusion. This, of course, was Satoshi Kon's Perfect Blue, and if you've seen the film, then you know just how much more simple I made the story than it really is. While Kon's direction is impeccable, we cannot turn our backs on the screenplay that was created by Sadayuki Mirai. And Mirai adapted this from a book. Most of you will know Kon for his famous works like Perfect Blue, Paranoia Agent, Tokyo Godfathers, or maybe even his earlier animation work in collaboration with the aforementioned Otomo on something like Ryujin Z or Memories, or even further back to a live-action film with story by Kon based off of his own manga and directed by Otomo, World Apartment Horror. It's hard to understate the influence of Kon's relatively short career. Short because he sadly passed away from pancreatic cancer in 2010 at the young age of 46. But he left behind an incredible legacy and things that I still watch. Without him, I also wouldn't have discovered a couple of authors, those being Yasutaka Tsutsui, who wrote the source material novel Paprika, which also led me to one of my current personal favorite collections of short stories, Salmonella Men on Planet Porno. Read that one if you can get your hands on it. It is wild. But then there's another author, Yoshikazu Takeuchi, the creative mind behind the novel which Perfect Blue is based on, Complete Metamorphosis, or in Japan, Kanzen Hentai. The English-speaking world is fortunate enough to have received a release from Seven Seas Entertainment in 2018 alongside some of Takeuchi's other stories, which are in the same vein of idol obsession, called Awakened from a Dream. Takeuchi began writing this story in the 80s, or rather the preliminary concept, a stalker obsessed with an idol. It was titled Wake Me From This Dream, and it was later made into the Perfect Blue live-action film in 2002. 43 pages turned into a nearly 2-hour feature film. It was just a test piece as a novice writer, a challenge among friends to just write something, and though completing the story brought him a sense of accomplishment, when his entire audience was only 2 readers, it felt like something was missing. This led to the creation of the full story for Complete Metamorphosis, the one that you will know surrounding our central character, Kirigoe Mima. It was originally released in 1991 and re-released in 1998 to accompany the film, though the book is quite different from the animation. The adaptation is more of a inspired by type of story, the mind-bending romp which leads the viewer to question where they can find reality in the story as Mima herself struggles for that, breaking apart, and the world just keeps getting darker and she keeps doing things she doesn't want to do, all in the name of making it in her new career. The book, on the other hand, is a far more direct story. Characters in the book have entirely different personalities altogether, and at its core, it's really just about one man's obsession and the dark path that it takes him down, while the idol that he's obsessed over is just trying to find her own way in an evolving industry, and hopefully, through the change in her image and direction, manage to stay relevant and maintain her career, maybe even reach #1. That's what we'll be talking about today, and this time I won't be covering the anime, as it's one where just talking about the story doesn't really do it justice, in my opinion. I think that it's also been done so many times by creators far more intelligent and thoughtful than a brainless sapient garloid such as myself, that I can just let it be. So, we'll cover the book. But before we get there, I'm going to yap a bit more. In the afterwords, which you can find across both books, we find some words from Takeuchi where he glowingly admires the film adaptation, so much so that it brought tears to his eyes. And it's always good to know that an author appreciates how others handled their work. He also admits to a obsession with idols and kaiju, but he explains in his own words that everyone, man or woman, has the potential to be a stalker, and idols can serve as a catalyst that radically heightens that trait. If an idol does not have that catalytic power, then they aren't really an idol. And by that logic, anyone on TV or radio, be they a local newscaster or an assistant on a cooking show, could be an idol. And of course, today internet influencers flirt with the idol concept, whether purposefully or accidentally, all the time, many having acquired their own stalkers. Unfortunately, my brain is broken, and during the first quarter or so of the book, anytime they brought up singing idols, the song Mail Me by the fictional idol group Desart would pop into my head, and it haunted me for days. It still does. A small tangent that if you don't know what I'm referring to, there is a film from 2002 called Suicide Club, written and directed by the madman that is Sion Sono. Something and possibly someone we could talk about at another time. For fun. In that film, there's a fictional idol group that seems to plague the TVs, radio waves, and even ringtones. And I see why. Because Mail Me just lodges itself in the mind and says, nah, good luck. I pay no rent. I offer no surrender to eviction. But the song is not created just for that film. The song was actually released 2 years earlier by Momoi Haruko, who is referred to affectionately by her fans and also refers to herself as Halko, after HAL 9000. No idea why, but a small interesting connection is that she actually voiced Moromi on Paranoia Agent. Anyways, all of this just to bring to you that if I had to experience that brainworm, so do you. Ahead, we'll be going over the entirety of the book, so big ol' honkin' spoiler alert, support the original material if you can. However, the book is no longer in print. Most likely the only copies you will be able to obtain are used, though there is an official audiobook which is not too expensive, and this is not meant to be a replacement for that. This is more or less just an abridged, which allows me to compare the characters and story. With that out of the way, let's get at it. The book opens with a little girl named Yumiko sitting in the playground sandbox. Her friends have all gone home, and the playground is empty as the sun sets. She ponders for a moment if she wants to finish her sandcastle, but feeling vulnerable and picturing her mother in worry, she decides to head home. However, she's intercepted by a man wearing a white t-shirt with an anime-style girl on it and baggy jeans. She tries to get past him, but he grabs her, and he begins to call her Ojo-chan, little girl. This thrust her into memory, believing she heard this voice before. It called to her in the dark of her bedroom at night. Her mother came in and held her close, telling her that it was her grandfather who had passed away when she was, well, born. The little girl struggles as she argues that it's a monster, and as her mother tells her to calm down, her grip tightens. It tightens until it hurts. And the words are now, don't struggle. Reality sinks in, the memory fades away, and the man has her. She goes slack, and he carries her away. Kirigoe Mima turns off her shower, only to hear the phone ringing. She wraps herself in a towel and goes to answer it as she wonders who it could be at this hour. Annoyed, she picks up the receiver and asks who it is, but on the other end, there's only heavy breathing. She asks again who it is, even more annoyed, as she's been getting calls like these for the past week. But eventually, a faint male voice comes, saying, Mima-san. It sounded desperate, crying. Mima wanted to hang up, but she instead pressed the receiver closer. The man on the other end continues. Do you know how I feel? Do you? I want to save you. Understandably, this is less than comforting, and she asks again who it is. What does he mean he wants to save her? He only responds in a panic that he's a huge fan. Then why is he harassing her with these calls? He goes quiet, but when she threatens to hang up, he finally responds that he wants to save her before she goes down the wrong path. He's trying not to bother her. Well, even more irritated now, she tells him that she doesn't need saving, and she'll decide her own path, so please stop calling. As she goes to hang up, he calls for her to wait, which she does, as he rambles that he's coming to meet her. He'll come soon, and he'll save her. He promises. Of course, Mima hangs up frantically. The next day at the studio with her manager Tadakoro and her assistant Rumi, Mima seems to have come down with a cold. As Rumi goes off to get a coffee for her, Mima explains the call to Tadakoro. He's aware that she's been getting them, but the fact that the stranger spoke this time is new. She relays the stalker's words, and Tadakoro blows it off as a nutcase, overexcited fan. That is, until Mima tells him that the stalker said he was coming to meet her soon. As Rumi heads down the hallway to bring the coffee back to Mima's green room, she notices that the emergency exit is half open. A shaft of sunlight is piercing the hallway, and blocking a small portion of it, a figure. She calls out to it, but it doesn't speak. This puts her on edge, and as she takes a step back, the figure takes a step forward, the backlight against the dim hallway making it difficult to discern his features other than a t-shirt and jeans. She demands to know who he is, what he's doing here, but he doesn't speak. Rumi yells that she'll call for help, but he quietly staggers closer before waving a scrap of paper at her, which she takes, and then he runs away, and as the door closes, the hallway goes dark once more. Back in the green room, which is small and furnished only with the vanity and a TV monitor on which Mima is watching the program Music Town, the show is doing a segment on this week's hot songs, hosted by a snobbish, middle-aged man which Mima shares no affection for. And that man is interviewing her rival, Ochiai Eri, who debuted the year before. Now, in the film, Ochiai Eri is a up-and-coming actress who Mima absolutely loves, but that's not who she is here. Though Mima didn't pick this girl as her rival, rather, it is the other way around. Eri decided that Mima was her rival, and almost as though on cue, the host of the show says that with her new song being a smash, she shouldn't need to worry about Mima anymore. Eri plays coy and cute, but Mima knows. Her eyes give her away. People are not people to her, but tools. To others, Eri was known as the Blue-Eyed Angel from her debut single, and her eyes appeared soft on screen. But in person, they were different. Mima had even heard once that the girl had badmouthed her, asking how long she planned to keep up the innocent girl act. And as this memory consumes Mima, she turns off the monitor and sulks. She doesn't like feeling this way about others. Tadakoro Bon, Mima's manager, approaches the office of his work, the Moon Kids talent agency, with an armful of books. It's a single unit in a small apartment building in Roppongi. He can't help but think about Mima's stalker, but quickly pushes this away as he enters to be greeted by his receptionist Tomo and cameraman Murano Yuji, who in the film Yuji is portrayed as being a absolute pervert who his only goal is to get his models to strip. I think you'll find here that's not how he is. He lights a cigarette and asks Yuji if he'll do it, to which he replies that if Mima's up for it, he's ready any time. The books he was carrying, he now gazes over on the table between the two men. Photo books of various idols. It hints at what's to come. Scantily clad and nearly pornographic photos adorn the covers and insides. Yuji suddenly realizes and asks Tadakoro if he's suggesting Mima will be doing a photo book like these. And Tadakoro confirms. Of course, this simply isn't the mental image Yuji has of the girl, still a kid in his mind, but Tadakoro tells him that he's already talked it over with Mima. She's never done anything like this, and he's normally a photojournalist, just returning from covering guerrilla fighters in the Middle East. However, that's all the more reason that Tadakoro wants Yuji, not some cameraman who views women as mere merchandise. And for his old friend, Yuji will do this, capturing the cute and the sexy of Mima Kirigoe. Later that night, Mima arrives at her apartment via taxi, accompanied by Rumi, her assistant. Before heading up, she asks Rumi if she would also like to come. She has something she'd like to talk to her about. Rumi graciously accepts, actually very happy at the prospect as Mima realizes why. She's never invited Rumi to her apartment before. They enter into her one-room apartment, which Rumi really seems to like, admiring the cleanliness and character of the place and ogling over Mima's big-screen 32-inch TV. Keep in mind that this was written in 1991, and the biggest CRT TV was the 45-inch Sony PVM 4300. There's actually a really cool video by Shankmods about saving one from a soon-to-be-demolished noodle factory in Japan. While Mima prepares hot water for tea, Rumi excitedly calls to Mima as she discovers her Laserdisc collection of anime, and it seems that Mima is quite the collector. Toei classics and more recent films like Kiki's Delivery Service and Grave of the Fireflies. It's noted that if an anime had been pressed onto one of those discs, Mima probably had it. Even some foreign animated films are in the collection. Seeing the enthusiasm, Mima tells Rumi that she's welcome to come watch any time. Here we get some of Rumi's backstory. She joined Moon Kids as an aspiring idol singer, but never quite made it. Even though she left her family behind and moved to Tokyo, she had the look and the drive. Something was missing that held her back. Tadakoro tried his best, but when she didn't make it, she became a part of the staff at the agency and worked hard. Soon she was Mima's assistant. Rumi never seemed down about it, but all the same, Mima tried to avoid bringing it up as to not hurt her, and because of this, accidentally built a bit of a distance between the two. But just now, that distance may have shrank. As Mima pours Rumi some tea, she internally thinks on her habits and how they've changed since becoming an idol. How being an idol has aged her, changed her. The media, her image, and of course, the stalker are all on her mind. But she bottles this up, and soon the tea has turned to wine. Wine loosens tongues, and Rumi is soon on about the upcoming photo book, but she doesn't know what's going to be in it. Mima admits that it's going to be racy, even clarifying, dirty, sexy. Rumi is uncomfortable, but listens to Mima and even agrees when she tells her that an idol can't survive on just being cute these days. Still, Rumi says that Mima is still surviving as she is, but Mima seems to want more. Rumi starts to say that she'd rather Mima retain her current pure image, but then stops. When pressed to continue, she brings up her concern of Mima's fans, her obsessive fans. Of course, this brings Mima back to the phone call, and when pressed even further, Rumi begins to cry and relays her encounter with the man at the studio. Mima demands to know what the letter says, and Rumi reluctantly gives it to her. What she reads shakes her. The letter details that the stalker learned her phone number by taping a show where she called her own answering machine, and he watched it hundreds of times to figure out what she dialed. He thought he could look up her address from that, but it didn't work. So he decided to try to meet her directly at the TV studio to deliver the letter by hand. Of course, we know how that turned out. The rest of it goes into how he doesn't want her to change and that he heard a rumor about her doing a photo book, but he doesn't believe it. However, if someone is pressuring her, he will protect her with his life. If she changes, he doesn't know what he'll do. He might lose himself completely, and they might both end up dead. He signs the letter sincerely, your darling Rose, and leaves a postscript where he promises to call soon to find out if the letter reached her. When she's finished, Mima is angrily questioning Rumi about why she hid the letter and didn't tell anyone about the man. But as Rumi profusely apologizes, Mima forces herself to calm down, understanding that Rumi most likely didn't want to upset her, and Mima apologizes herself, comforting the crying Rumi. When the phone rings. I will call you soon to find out. The pair stare at the phone. On the other end, the man waits impatiently. He knows her schedule, having acquired it from multiple sources. He's sure she's home, but the phone has rung over 20 times, and pains grow in his chest. Could she be out having fun with somebody? No, she would have turned on her answering machine. Could she be pretending not to be home? No, she wouldn't do that to him. The man fictionalizes scenarios in his head of Mima having to dodge phone calls from a manager that she dislikes. That ugly, bald bastard. At least, that's how the stalker thinks of him. He wishes he could hear her voice, if only for a fleeting moment, to go comfort her right now. It's not enough. He'll need her address. He hugs himself, imagining Mima in his arms, never having been in love. He wonders if the feelings he has about Mima are that. But he angrily rejects that, and he exists to save her. He gazes at a poster of Mima on his wall. He must protect that smile. As his nerves go more and more wild, he searches for a way to calm himself. He has shelves with row after row of videotapes, almost all of them idol singers. Disorganized piles of tapes litter the ground of his small apartment, so much so that there's only a small free space which is occupied by the man himself. But even in this disorganization, he knows where the tapes he wants are. He grabs the tape of Mima's rookie debut and puts it into a VCR connected to a large TV. On a second smaller TV, he has another VCR in which he puts the tape of Mima's appearance today. Obviously for him, the best Mima was the rookie, the innocent one. The new one has an undeniable air of sexuality, and he doesn't want her to change anymore. She's becoming corrupted, and he can't stand it. The entertainment industry is changing her innocence to the point he almost wishes she never became an idol. If he doesn't save her, who will? He reaches for a brown paper bag, and within it is his last resort, a knife with a white grip and a long blade. He smiles as he presses the flat side of the blade against his cheek. The next day, Mima understandably is not feeling so well. The recent events are taking a toll, and the man's actions are occupying her mind. What if he has her address by now? The stress and lack of sleep seem to have led to a mild illness. The cold that she had earlier is growing. But through the sniffles, she tells Rumi that she's going to tell Tadakoro about this. Of course, she told him before, but the letter adds a whole new level. They need to be serious and have a plan. Playfully expressing that if she sees him, she'll knock the living daylights out of him. And she punches the air. Rumi says that she'll grab him with her own two hands and give him what's coming. And while they have this playful bravado now, it's clear that there's an uneasiness under the surface. Later, Mima and Rumi give Tadakoro the letter and tell of Rumi's encounter. Unfortunately, she didn't get a good look at the guy because of the light behind him, but Tadakoro is still determined to figure out who he is. Obviously a fan, he'll have been at the concerts and events. Maybe they could find him on one of the tapes. But Rumi says that it just happened too fast. Tadakoro has read the letter many times since it was handed to him, but he keeps reading. They can't wave it away as simple harassment anymore. But if he hasn't committed any crime yet, there's nothing they could do by going to the police. Worse, it may get leaked to the public, and just made into a joke by the media at the expense of the poor idol. In addition, Tadakoro wants to handle it as an agency matter from their own. Find this guy and set him straight. Mima understands, but another part of her thinks that Tadakoro doesn't. Nonetheless, the current plan is to wait and see what the stalker does next. For now, forget about him and focus on the music. As the three walk down the hallway, Tadakoro mutters, to no one in particular, about freaks and weirdos these days. They never caught the guy who killed that little girl and took the skin from her leg. He tosses a grin to Mima and tells her to be careful not to get her skin cut off. And though it's a joke, Mima obviously doesn't find it funny. Elsewhere, the stalker continues to spiral into his maddened thoughts, questioning himself over and over about what he holds dearest, and eventually settling on purity, the only thing that he could trust. He would give his life to protect it, and Mima is a symbol of that purity to him. Idols no longer represented that. They are no more than prostitutes selling sex, using their appeal to lead men astray, like all women. All except for Mima. She's pure, and he doesn't want her to lose that purity. What if she changed? No, never. Internally, he begs her not to change. but before him is a magazine. On the front, the cover reads in bright red letters, "From pure to sexy, Kirigoe Mima to attempt a photo shoot." He had to take action. Mima got home late that night. She'd been on a radio show to discuss the newest upcoming song, which, in truth, Mima was quite displeased with. Could she hit number 1 with this? Her best was about a year ago at number 5, and some others had barely made the top 10. She questions if her manager is behind the times. Idols don't have the pull they used to, but Tadakoro is sure that this photo book releasing alongside her new single would boost the publicity and lead to sales. To her, though, no photo book could have that much selling power, no matter how racy the pictures. Continuing in her doubt, she doesn't believe she'll even make it to number 9. But of course, on the radio, she cheerfully exclaims she'll make it to number 1. She'd been stagnant for so long, and staying that course would mean a slow decline into obscurity. Of course, she had fans that wanted her to remain that way, but that small group wouldn't be enough in the long term. Meanwhile, her younger rival, Ochiai Eri, fully sold her sex appeal, and it seemed to work. The words of Eri echoing in her head. Just how long does she plan to keep that innocent act up? So, Mima vowed to change as well. The next day, Tadakoro was running himself ragged, promoting Mima and her upcoming song everywhere he could, not just for his sake, but because he actually cares about Mima deeply, which is not how it seems in the anime. He does seem to be the slimy manager. This is her only career, and he believes in her and her talent, but she's not really a self-promoter. Despite this, she has work ethic and never complains about her schedule. She also cares about him and the staff. Tadakoro thinks about the image they originally crafted for her, thinking it would last, but times change, and now she may have to, in a sense, betray her old fans. She has the sexy side, but she's been concealing that as her current persona, the charming Rose. This will change. They're turning it up, looking for a new tagline, new titles to change that image. The new costume alone can do a lot of that. A white tank top blouse that barely has shoulder straps, low cut to show her cleavage, fabric to allow some bouncing, a high cut white mini skirt with tight knee-high socks, and finally, a large ribbon in the back of her head and one on her skirt to keep some of the cuteness. If Mima gives the okay, they're taking number 1 for sure. And so, later on, at an all-hands meeting that's being held at the Moon Kids talent agency, sketches of the new costume are passed around, and Mima lets out a small laugh, asking if Tadakoro thinks that's a bit extreme. But he refutes this, saying that if they're changing her image, they're going to go the full distance. Relying on her innocence is leading to a dead end, and now that's going to be set aside. Even the new song, Sexy Valley, might seem a bit aggressive with the title, but that's all with purpose. Tadakoro has informed the TV networks of the new direction, and he's counting on everyone to be on board. And as he relays this much, his passion seems to give everyone a moment of silent agreement. But what does Mima think? Well, she says that if it's the agency's decision, she'll do it. She doesn't quite like the idea of the change, but she can see the passion behind it. She doubts anyone would see her as sexy anyways. But she also wants to defeat Ochiai Eri. So, with new resolve, she declares that if they're doing it, it's going to be a bold plan. Time to leave the innocent act behind. And she gives a grin to Tadakoro. And so, Tadakoro declares to everyone that with Mima's tough decision, they better not let her down. He turns to a young man named Ken and asks how her current fans will react. Ken produces a stack of surveys. The responses are largely negative. Nearly all of them are against the new direction, but they are from her fan club, her most passionate fans. Of course, they don't want her to change, and if they had it their way, she'd remain a child forever. Tadakoro says that they don't want them anyway. They're holding her back. True fans would want to see her grow. But in this moment, Mima and Tadakoro exchange glances. There's one specific fan on their minds. After this meeting, Rumi and Mima go to the convenience store to get bread and cup soup as they discuss the approaching photo shoot, which is tomorrow. As they leave, they lightly reference the stalker and joke about what an eerie time of day it is. Almost as though on cue, it's revealed that he was in the convenience store and exits soon after to follow, muttering to himself that he can't wait any longer. He overheard them talking about the photo shoot, so now he knows it's true. A man and a woman are engaged in sweaty, hot sex, and after they have finished, the man asks the girl how old she is. She says not to worry, plenty old enough, as she lights a menthol cigarette. He still has his doubts, but just looking at her arouses him once more. Before him is Ochiai Eri, Mima's rival and rising star. He remarks how, with her being an idol, he's surprised that she's really just like the rest of us, and she responds that being an idol is just business. Her private life is as normal as can be. She recently had her own provocative photo book, which the man had pleasured himself to many times, and now he had gotten to be with her for real. But there's a price. The man is an investigative entertainment reporter named Sakuragi Shin, and Eri wants him to dig up a scandal on Mima. She even has a tip for him. Mima is involved with a rock star named Aran Naoto, but no one else knows. She knows, though, or so she says. She wants the man to find proof. That is her price. If he wants her again, he has to catch Mima on a secret date with this rock star. The day of the photo shoot has arrived, and Rumi is thinking about how Murano Yuji is actually a nice guy. He's different from other photographers, kind and considerate of the people he worked with. Mima will be in good hands. And this is true. Mima is nervous as she goes in, but Yuji's energy is infectious, even as he lays out that she is to think of him as the voice of God and obey completely. While you would think that kind of instruction would put someone off, there's something about him that makes her at ease. He tells her that they've met before, and she wonders if he did the cover photo of her debut, but he says they never worked together. So she apologizes that she doesn't remember. He replies that he doesn't expect it. He had a beard back then. She suddenly remembers and addresses him by the nickname Mr. Bear. All tension remaining seems to fade away, and they begin. After it's done, Mima leaves the studio with a bounce in her step. Though the pace had been tough, Yuji's professionalism made her feel like she was in good hands. Darkness had fallen outside, and Rumi was waiting for her with a taxi ready. As they climb in, they discuss the shoot and what a good guy Yuji is, Mima confessing that she wouldn't have made it through without him. After the whole thing, she even sees herself as sexy now. Rumi adding that her sexiness is refined and she still has innocence to it, unlike that Ochiai Eri. She's just vulgar. Jokingly, Mima says that Rumi seems to not like her either, and sure enough, she doesn't, even going as far to call her a slut. She says that she can just tell. They arrive at Mima's apartment and say their goodbyes. Mima heads inside, up the elevator, down the hall, and to her door. And as she goes to unlock it, she steps on something. A red rose. Attached to it is a folded piece of white paper with the words, "Your darling Rose," written on the outside. He found her. Shakily, she opens the letter to read it. The stalker details that he knows she read his previous letter. He called her many times, yet she won't listen to him. She insists on changing. New costume, new song, new photo book. He won't ask again. He's going to take action. He's made up his mind. He will save her from this wicked path by his own means. Later, Tadakoro is in Mima's apartment, raging about the stalker. Mima hadn't gotten much sleep, as the letter kept her up all night, but emotionally, she had calmed down at least. Rumi sat next to her as Tadakoro continued to rant about the man, but she tells him that it's not the time for that. They need to go to the police. and Tadakoro agrees. He's friends with a few detectives, and he'll notify them today. He really does care about Mima. Other idols would have been selfish and petty with him, but not Mima. She cared about him and the others that worked with him, and the fact that someone was causing her to suffer like this made his blood boil. He intended to bring the full force of the law against this creep. But Mima says no. Both Tadakoro and Rumi are shocked. What is she saying? She explains that she understands, but what crime has the man committed? Prank phone calls and weird letters, it's not enough to get police action. The letter could even just be interpreted as mere fan mail if someone wanted to see it that way. Besides, she doesn't want to be interviewed by the police, and with her song releasing so soon, her schedule's going to be full starting tomorrow. She doesn't have time for this. Tadakoro and Rumi are both stunned. A normal idol would be lashing out at everyone, but not Mima. She intends to persevere, not just for her, but for everyone else working on her behalf. Tadakoro announces his plan. They will move forward with her new schedule, but he will be by her side, and Rumi too. Don't want any weird rumors raised from it being just Mima and her manager living in the apartment. Rumi agrees enthusiastically, and Tadakoro confidently says that he may not look it, but he was a black belt in judo. If the creep comes, he'll knock him out with his trademark back throw. In the stalker's apartment, he stares at the knife. It's calming, soothing, comforting. He caresses the handle on which he has carefully carved the full-body image of Mima from her debut based off of photos from then. He speaks to this carving of her. Of course, she's still her, but not like she was then. She can't keep going this way. He thought she would never betray him, but he sees her purity being left behind. Looking at the cover of his favorite album, her debut, Innocence Forever, his eyes water. He has to protect that smile. He goes to his kitchen, and even in this place there exist piles of tapes. He pulls a package from his freezer. Fast forwarding, once the frozen wrapped object has softened, and from inside, he pulls a thin strip of flesh which has somewhat putrefied. He tells himself that he shouldn't have waited so long, and then he cuts a strip of flesh from his own arm, bearing the pain for Mima. When done, he places the no longer frozen strip in the wound and wraps it up. It hurts, but it's for her. Elsewhere, Mima has just finished rehearsing her new single, Sexy Valley. Sexy Valley. And as Rumi enters her green room, Mima asks what she thought. Rumi gives her some honestly well thought out critiques, but overall, she's just happy with it and says that she thinks it's really catchy. It just makes her want to dance. Those words soothe the pop idol a bit, and she says with confidence that she's going to nail it. Mima approaches the outside edge of the stage for the TV program Music Town. Live performances aren't new for her, but there can be no mistakes, and this is a make-or-break moment. Something distracts her from her nervousness, though. She feels as though she's being watched, and over her shoulder, she confirms this. She sees her rival, Ochiai Eri. Their gazes meet, and Eri turns away, remarking just loud enough for Mima to hear about her age. First innocent, now smutty. Apparently when a woman gets too old, she can't pull off either. But Mima locks eyes with her and grins as if to say, "Is that all you got?" And for a moment, it seems that grin strikes the target. Tadakoro is in Mima's apartment, drinking a glass of wine and awaiting the return of Mima and Rumi. They should be back from the TV studio any time now. He walks to the window and checks outside, as he's been doing routinely every 10 minutes, keeping his eye out for anyone strange, and though no one has come so far, he's ready to attack at even the slightest suspicion. During his check, he sees the arrival of the two girls, and for a bit, his mind is at ease. Shortly after, they're coming through the door, and Tadakoro showers Mima with praise. They discuss the appearance, and Mima seems more full of confidence than ever. It's never felt so good. She really thinks she's going to make it. With the new change pretty much complete, it's time to celebrate. But Rumi checks the fridge, and They're out of beer. Mima is ready to take Rumi to go get some more, but Tadakoro says that he'll go. He remembers seeing a vending machine around back. He completes his rendezvous to obtain the party favors, and just as he's about to re-enter the apartment, he happens to glance at the door to the fire escape. He's barely able to make out something, but there's someone there. He quietly sets down the cans of beer at Mima's doorstep and moves towards the exit. He calls out, and the figure dashes. Tadakoro responds in turn, taking to the chase, angrily sprinting after this long-haired man. Though his heart feels like it might leap out of his throat, he refuses to give up. Down several turns, leading to streets lit and not, Tadakoro nearly loses sight of the man, but refuses to let him escape. Not this damn pervert. He's not getting away. After several minutes, he begins to close in and finally catches the intruder, yanking him to the ground and pinning him with his elbow on the man's neck, while also restraining his left arm. He demands to know who the man is, but the man is stubborn. So, Tadakoro applies some more pressure and asks again. The man manages to break free and throw a punch which grazes Tadakoro's cheek. But when he tries a second one, Tadakoro is ready. The signature back throw is launched, knocking the wind out of the man, and he stops moving. Of course, the girls are wondering what is taking so long, and as they discuss this, the door opens to reveal Tadakoro. A little bloody, but when asked what happened, instead of replying with words, he steps to the side and presents the man he caught. And when questioned about the man's identity, he proudly replies with a laugh that it's the pervert. He caught him. Emotions build up within Mima over all of the events that have happened as a consequence of this man. But then Rumi disappoints them all. It's not him. Even a bit disappointed with herself when pressed, she lowers her head and says she doesn't think it's him. The man who handed her the letter was younger and smaller. This does nothing to calm Tadakoro. If anything, he's more angry and demands the man's identity. And he finally gets a reply. The man just asks how many times Tadakoro is going to ask that. All they need to know is that he's not a pervert stalker. He was here for his job. What does that mean? He's paid to lurk outside someone's apartment door? Well, yes, actually. He's an entertainment reporter. This shocks all three interrogators. Still mad, Tadakoro says he knows every entertainment reporter and he's never seen this man. But he replies that Tadakoro's out of touch. He works for the weekly thriller. His name is Sakuragi Shin. Well, what's he doing here? He only replies that it's a trade secret. This does not please Tadakoro, who, within seconds, is stretching the man across his back until he submits, finally revealing the information we already know. He was put up to this by Ochiai Eri, so that he could catch Mima and Aranauto on a date. While the others refute that something like that could ever even be a possibility, inside, Mima reflects on the rock star who she had gone out with on several dates. But that was 2 years ago. Mima's schedule is packed. TV appearances, radio shows, magazine interviews, but just like always, she doesn't complain. Eventually, in the afternoon, she and Rumi are able to go to a cafe where the lunch crowd has already cleared out. There, they discuss Ochiai Eri and her plots, Rumi seeming to be far more upset than Mima, even going so far as to assert that Eri may be behind the stalker, but Mima says she wishes that were the case, but she doesn't believe it. The conversation eventually drifts to the accusations of dating the rock star, and Mima confesses, but it was 2 years ago, and she broke up with him because he was more interested in himself. While shocked by this, Rumi recovers by ending the conversation with, well, even if she was dating him, that's her business. Tattling to some sleazy reporter is not befitting an idol. Later, back at the TV station, Mima confronts Eri about trying to sabotage her career. Of course, Eri denies this cattily, and says she would never try to sabotage the career of her rival. Getting nowhere, Mima decides to be more direct. She asks Eri about the reporter and informs her that he was watching her apartment until Tadakoro caught him and loosened his tongue on the matter. Eri continues to deny, saying that it's just the way the world works. Reporters dig through the lives of famous people, and she didn't tell him to go anywhere. However, Mima has some harsh words for her. Well, as harsh as Mima gets. She says that she believes Eri seduced the reporter into doing her bidding. She can accuse Mima of acting innocent, but Mima believes that an idol needs to have some real innocence. Sexy and promiscuous aren't the same thing, and idols who are loose with men always end up hated by their fans. Eri finally loses her cool and tosses a cup of water on Mima before turning away and running, yelling that she doesn't care what Mima thinks. Once she's in her green room, Eri calls none other than Aaron Naoto, asking if he's free tonight. She wants to see him. He responds that he needs a little more notice than that, but she childishly tells him that if he's going to be like that, then she doesn't need to see him anyway. After some back and forth, Eri gets her way and smugly hangs up, pleased with herself that she believes she's somehow getting one over on Mima. Elsewhere, the stalker is unraveling the bandages over his attempt at fusing someone else's skin into his. It did not go well. It stinks. It's filled with pus, blackened blood, and it stings, a strange, prickly, itchy pain. The man scratches at the area until the failed experiment is cleared from his arm. It's a failure. And even after it's been cleaned, the area is clearly infected and oozes with pus when touched. Why wouldn't it take? It drives him mad. This was for Mima. It must stay on. He repeats this over and over in a fit until he gazes at one of his many posters of Mima, hearing her say to him that if he really cares, he won't give up. Boosted with renewed confidence, he begins to theorize and create reasonable excuses in his mind as to why it failed. Finally, he returns to the poster and caresses the face on the paper, asking for her to look. See, he's not depressed at all. But he needs a new donor, and this time, an idol. He turns to his tapes, finding one labeled, For Self-Pleasure, Idols Volume 3. He plays the tape, and as idols flash across the screen, though they are normally the objects of his meat manipulation, today they are for deciding who is to be experimented on. Even so, though not as pure as Mima, who he would never pleasure himself to, the girls appearing on the screen had a cuteness and innocence that stopped him from considering taking them. So he fast forwards until finally someone suitably detestable appears. Ochiai Eri. A short, angry stroke session later, it is decided. This lewd seducer of men is no idol. She deserves this. The day has arrived. The Sexy Valley photo book has arrived, and everyone involved, Rumi, Mima, Tadakoro, and Yuji, are pleased with it. Mima especially pleased. It came out so well, she even calls it incredible. It's got shock, but it's not obscene. Everything is tasteful. No full frontal, no nudity, but hints that, had you been there, maybe that's what you could have seen. All the most erotic parts just slightly obscured. And it's all thanks to Yuji and to his skills as a photographer. Tadakoro is sure that this is going to draw in fans and non-fans alike. The book launches with the CD tomorrow. Sexy Valley will take number 1. Impassioned by the moment, Mima declares, "Goodbye, darling Rose. Say hello to the bombshell." As night falls, the stalker contemplates how he's going to get Ochiai Eri. Chloroform? No, that means he would have to haul her unconscious body in a taxi. Hostage at knife point? No, too many things could go wrong. He stares at his knife and the carving of Mima upon it. Then it hits him. A scandal. He just has to have some blackmail. And that, for him, is simple. A woman as dirty as Eri obviously does lewd things in her free time. He just has to get the number for her fan club and then get one of the members to give him her schedule. From that info, he can tail her to get what he needs. But time is running out, so he needs to act fast. Tadakoro has been running himself ragged again, this time trying to get Mima on the TV program Nighttime Hit Parade. Securing a spot would be difficult, but guarantee a top spot on the charts. To this end, he's been visiting the producer of the show more times than he can count, but eventually, his passion and hard work pay off. Softened by his dedication, the producer gives the okay. He thought of Mima as just a run-of-the-mill idol, but Tadakoro's conviction about Sexy Valley won him over, and after delivering the news to Mima, she is ecstatic to show the world the new her. Later that night, the streets of Roppongi are crawling with the local nightlife, and among the crowd is an inconspicuous Ochiai Eri, keeping her eye out for anyone tailing or noticing her. She heads down a back alley. Satisfied with her stealth skills and lack of witnesses, she enters a dingy apartment building, which leads to the office of the record label which handles her CDs. The coast is clear in all directions, so she heads into the office as well. All alone, she pulls a beer out of the mini-fridge of the office and plops onto the couch to wait the arrival of Aaron Naoto, who does not take long to also appear. As he comes in, he begins to tell her that she needs to give him more notice, but she's upon him in an instant. When they're done, he remarks on how rough she is, and she says she can't help it. She's in love. With him? No, with sex. He remarks that he can't believe she still does the idol thing. Her fans would kill themselves if they knew she was like this. No matter. He did his part, and he turns to leave. But she tells him to wait. He promised her one thing. That thing is a photograph of him and Mima from when they dated 2 years ago. An innocent enough photo, just his arm over Mima's shoulder while she holds up her fingers in the V sign. But for Eri, this is all she needs. Naoto is honestly a bit concerned by the look in her eye, but she tells him it's none of his business. Out on the street, Eri now waits for a taxi when someone calls her name from behind. She looks over her shoulder to see a silhouette of a man. No matter how hard she tried, she had been seen. She tries to ignore it, but he continues to call her name. Eventually, she turns to him to begin berating about how this is her private time, but the man steps forward, unfazed. Instinctively, she takes a step back, but regains her righteous anger and begins once again. What does he want? An autograph? He can have it, but then leave her alone. No autograph. He holds up a disposable camera. What then? A picture? No. He has the pictures he needs. He's not a fan, and he's not going away. He has a request, or more a demand. Come with him to his room. Of course, she begins to shout, telling him absolutely not. But he says he's not asking. She can scream if she wants, but does she know what's on that camera? He's sure she does. In her haste for satisfaction at the office, she hadn't locked the door. She rationalizes that if he wants her to go to his room, it must be for sex, which would be a small price in exchange for the camera. And in truth, her reputation. As she enters, she first notices the smell. It stinks. The man locks the door behind him and tells her it's rotting skin, clarifying that it's the skin of a little girl. Noticing all of the tapes is what she does next, but he ignores her questions as he approaches her with a roll of packing tape. Assuming he wants help packing the VHSs and looking for an opportunity to steal the camera, she offers to help, but she's very wrong. He immediately lunges at her and begins to tape her ankles and wrists as she struggles. She rolls about, but soon realizes that she's not going anywhere. She offers to let him have sex with her in exchange for her not going to the police. Wrong move. He tears off her clothes and forces himself on her. After all is done, she says that since he's finished, he should let her go. But his anger rises when he looks at her exposed body. He begins to slap and pinch her. He calls her a bitch, a whore. It's her fault. She seduces men on the television. Of course she wants things inside of her. All women are crazy, filthy through and through. But she laughs at him. He can call her names all he likes, but he brought her here and did filthy things to her. He angrily exclaims, that's not why he brought her here. She made him want it. She continues to press him, and he continues his rant about women, but whatever else is true, she specifically is filthy. He loves idols, and All the tapes are recordings of idols. Can't she see? He wants women to have purity. She retorts that no idol is pure. As their discussion continues on, it finally comes to the one true pure idol, Kirigoe Mima. She's the exact opposite of Eri, every bit the innocent idol that Eri should be. Now's her chance. Mima's as fake as they come. The cutesy innocent act isn't real. Angered even more, he slaps her again, demanding she not talk that way about Mima. But Eri continues. He doesn't know anything about women. How about he check her purse? Look for the photo at the bottom. Find it there. The moment he pulls it out, the blood drains from his face. It's the photo of Naoto and Mima. Elsewhere, Mima is in the green room preparing for nighttime hit parade, completely nervous but comforted by the ever-loyal Rumi, who she asks for another cup of coffee. She frets over her costume a bit, but Rumi reassures her, and now there are less than 20 minutes before she goes on stage. She bolsters her confidence and prepares herself. Back with the stalker and Eri, he grapples with what he's seeing. It can't be. No, she's pure. Or so he thought. He turns to Eri as she asks if he sees now. She can't tell what's on his mind, but he says he does see. He knows what he must do. And she must do something for him. For Mima. Of course, at the mention of that name, she says she'll pass, but she doesn't have a choice. And as he explains to her that she'll be his test subject, her eyes fill with dread. He explains it simply. He's going to take off her skin. This obviously results in panic, but a short moment later, he has her taped to a beam in the kitchen, and satisfied with his restraints, he glances at the carving of Mima on his knife. It fills him with a renewed devotion on what he must do next. Eri protests as he approaches, but the moment the knife enters her scalp, she freezes, and after a moment, she begins to scream and thrash. He tells her that it will ruin everything as he tightens his grip on her, and then he traces her face with the knife. And when he has completed the circuit, blood covers her, and in soft mumbles she cries that it hurts. Now Mima is on the stage performing her song. In the control room, Tadakoro and the producer watch with great satisfaction. It's going to be a huge success in his mind, but that all depends on the viewers. So, what do the viewers think? Rumi practically runs in and tells him that the phones are ringing off the hook. Ever since Mima came on the TV, the office has been flooded with calls. Everyone seems to be in agreement that this is going perfectly. Tadakoro tells Rumi that they should throw a surprise party for Mima, him, Yuji, and Rumi, all at Mima's apartment. Rumi lights up with glee at this idea and says she'll go get it ready. Tadakoro will take care of wrangling Mima and Yuji. Once again, back with the stalker and Eri. He carefully tries to remove the face of the now barely conscious, bloody idol before him. Every once in a while, her body will jolt, but she has no more willpower left in her. He considers just killing her now so that she'll stop moving, but he wants the skin to come from someone alive. It's a difficult process. He can't cut too deep or too shallow because either way will mess up the end result. But sometime during this careful excision of the skin, his VCR whirs to life and the TV lights up. It's Mima's live performance of Sexy Valley on Nighttime Hit Parade. He'd set a timer 3 days earlier on the VCR so it could be recorded. The new costume shocks him, but no longer in a way that torments him because he's going to save her. He's learned a lot during the time of removing Eri's face. He's ready. He has confidence in his plan. He believes that he knows where she'll go after the show. Straight to her apartment. There, he will catch her alone because of how late it will be, and then he'll take her to another specific location he has in mind to perform the ritual. He feels noble, sublime, powerful, and full of conviction. He's going to sacrifice himself for Mima. Looking at Eri, he originally planned on fully flaying her, but he doesn't have the time. The rest of the body should be easier than the face, but how long will he last when he removes his own skin? Not long, judging by her. He's not her, though. He's stronger. What to do about the motionless pop idol in his apartment, though? Eventually, the police will come and find the body. But that doesn't matter. Everything will be over by the end of the day. And so he departs. Soon he and Mima will be one. As her performance ends, Mima faces the camera and holds her pose until given the okay by the director. It's done. Finally. All that nervousness and adrenaline washes away, and she heads to her green room. Tadakoro has a secretive smile. He may know something about the incoming CD sales. He gladly greets her and drapes a pink cardigan over her shoulders. But where's Rumi? Oh, she went home already. This understandably disheartens Mima for a moment, but Tadakoro keeps up the act, saying it wasn't very nice. But he hands her a taxi voucher and tells her to go home and get some rest. All by herself in the green room now, she can't help but wonder what's up with everyone, as a sudden wave of loneliness washes over her. How could they all just disappear like that? Regardless, she changes into her street clothes and leaves the station, only to be met with a horde of male fans, all waving and cheering. She returns a small wave and enters the waiting taxi. Suddenly, anxiety strikes. But about what? The new life? No. It's something much more dreadful. He is still out there. In the exhilaration, she had momentarily forgotten, but now the threat returns to her mind. He's still coming. Carrying bags of party favors and short of breath, Rumi fumbles with the keys to Mima's apartment. Mima's success has invigorated her with renewed purpose, though. For Rumi, Mima's happiness is hers, and she doesn't know how Mima feels, but nonetheless, she wants Mima to hit the top, truly and wholeheartedly, and it seems that that path is unfolding now. She looks at her watch and thinks to herself, any time now. That means she needs to speed up the preparations for the party. But this is interrupted by a knock on the door. It couldn't be Mima. Why would she knock on her own door? Oh, it must be Tadakoro. She unlocks and opens the door, but it's not Tadakoro. It's not Yuji. But it is someone familiar. As soon as it hits her, she tries to close the door. Though she hadn't seen him well that day at the station, she knows. But faster than she can close the door, he's forcing it fully open, throwing her to the floor. And as he steps in, she finally gets a good look at him. Long, disheveled hair, craggy, angular face with little eyes, a big nose and thick lips. He stood with a slouch and was stocky around the waist. From the floor, she looks up at him as he addresses her as the assistant girl. He instructs her that she will help him now, whether she likes it or not. He's threatening, commanding. She will obey him. She tells him to get away from her. She'll scream. The walls are thin. She stands up to defy him, preparing to scream, but he holds up the picture of Mima and Naoto, which he took from Eri. Rumi would do anything for Mima. Right now, her career is rocketing into the stars, and this would blow apart that ship. Mima arrives home to find it unlocked. She guesses the only explanation is that she forgot to lock up before she left, trying to avoid the lurking paranoia in her mind. But as she ventures inside, everything is wrong. The lights are on and the answering machine is off. She also smells food, which she then spots on her counter. Now she gleefully realizes that Rumi and Tadakoro were planning a surprise party for her. That explains everything about their weird behavior. But where are they? They wouldn't have left the place unlocked if they needed to go to the store for something, and Rumi would have left a note. But then she spots a small red object next to her door. A rose petal. Terror strikes, and the anxiety and paranoia return all at once. No, it can't be. She instinctively goes to the phone to call her manager, but he could be anywhere right now. The TV station, his apartment, the office. But she needs him right now. She reaches for the phone, and as she touches it, it rings. The stalker calls her by name, and she demands to know who he is, but he declares she knows already. And indeed she does. So what does he want from her? He wants her to come to the old KTV studio, which is now abandoned. She can't say no because if she does, he'll kill Rumi. She has 5 minutes starting now. She can make it if she runs. Over the phone, she can hear Rumi telling her not to go, but the man tells her that he killed Ochiai, and one more kill won't make a difference to him. Mima ran through the aches, the pains, and the quick beating heart, and then she ran some more. How long had it been since she had a run like this? Probably high school. When she would walk to the KTV station, it would probably take no more than 10 minutes, so she should be able to make it. And as she ran, her fear turned into rage. The calls and the letters were all she knew of this man, and now face to face, she would tell him exactly what she thinks of him. The studio hadn't been used for 3 years, and it was soon to be torn down. She circled the building and found the only open entrance to be an emergency exit on the side. The place was a mess of lumber and cardboard, and musty smells. At the end of the hallway, she finds a single room with the light on. The man had brought a generator to give the place some power. He greets her with a laugh, saying he was never going to kill Rumi, and he apologizes for such a scare. But she wants to know why she's here, right? Of course. He wants to protect her. He pulls out a life-size poster of Mima from her debut. She was so adorable back then. He strokes the face of the poster, which gives Mima a chill. He wants to keep her as she was. That's why he wrote and called. But no matter what, she insisted on changing. Rumi accosts the man. Just who does he think he is? What Mima does is her own business. He loses his temper, telling Rumi not to upset him. This is for Mima. But Rumi repeats again that it's none of his business. All he's done is harass her. Of course, in his mind, he wasn't harassing her. He was trying to save her. He even took off Ochiai's skin. Rumi is taken aback, obviously, by the statement, but he ignores her as he takes Mima's hand and begins to reminisce about the studio they are in, the place of her debut. Innocence forever. He gushes over the entire performance and how she ended with cherry blossoms filling the stage and a special pose which he clumsily tries to reenact. That's the Mima he wants to preserve, but she wants to change. His calls and letters won't do anymore, so that's why she's here now. He brings out the knife, and Rumi places herself between him and Mima. Still wrapped in his moment, the man continues to wax poetic about how much he loves Mima, her purity and innocence. He would die for her. All the while, Rumi and Mima are looking for a way to escape. But then he comes to what his plan is. They will become one. Almost dreamily, he describes the process. He'll take off his skin, and then he'll take off Mima's skin. His soul, her body. On the outside, it will be Mima, but on the inside, it will be him. The Mima of today will go back to being the one of her debut. Of course, this leads to them calling him insane, and as an insane man would do, he claims he's never been more clear-headed. As he carries on in his delight, Mima whispers to Rumi that they will run on 3. And so, 1, 2, 3. They take off running into the darkened hallway, but Mima quickly loses control of her footing and collides into a wall. The man is instantly upon her, hauling her back into the green room. Drawn back by Mima's screams, Rumi runs in despite Mima's protests and charges the man, but he hits her on the back of the head with the butt of the knife and she goes down. The man then proceeds to tape Mima's wrists and ankles. If she doesn't comply, he'll kill Rumi. He cheerfully exclaims that he'll go first. He had plenty of practice with Eri. He traces both halves of his face and proclaims the pain, but proudly says he can take it. The hard part is the peeling. He found it's easier to do it this way than to fillet the skin underneath. He grabs the piece at his hairline and begins to pull down, screaming as blood splatters, eventually going more quickly with a final yank until it is finally down to the neck and around his shoulders. Mima, all the while, watches. Though horrified, she can't turn away. At the end of it all, it reminds her of a butterfly emerging from a chrysalis, albeit in the form of a bloody stomach-churning ritual. During this time, Tadakoro and Yuji stumble upon Mima's apartment to find the lights on and things left in a bit of a disarray, but Mima did leave them one clue, a note The only words hastily scrawled in pencil are, "Old KTV." The two ponder what that could mean, but it dawns on Tadakoro. He only tells Yuji, they need to go now. Something bad is happening. And so, they run. At the station, the man appears to be a monster now to Mima, the flesh stripped away, no lips, eyelids, anything, just teeth, eyes, and muscle. Still bound by the tape, she attempts to scoot away, but she has nowhere to go as the man maniacally proclaims that he will take her skin next. This may be the end for her. The man's bloody, sticky hand grasps her leg as he prepares to pounce on her fully. Mima closes her eyes, and then a dull thunk. The man falls over. Rumi has struck him over the head with a large bottle of lotion. She quickly tears the tape off of Mima, and they go to run before he gets back up. But it's too late. He's already regained himself and bounds in front of them. The pair are backed into a corner, and the man confesses that Mima is breaking his heart. He offers his full devotion, and this is how she treats him. He will take her skin, though. Trying to think quickly, Mima directs Rumi to run to the right, and as the man turns to intercept her, Mima runs to the left. This successfully allows them to escape, and as they run down the darkened hallway, the man calls after them that they no longer have the luxury of him taking their skin while they're alive. The first one he catches will die. They blindly navigate the mess of the hallway and the old TV station, and eventually, Mima, who has been running her hand along the wall, finds that there is no more wall to touch. She loses her balance, and they find themselves in an old locker room. Rumi turns on the light, but is informed by Mima that this was a bad idea. Now he will know where they are. She quickly tries to apologize, but Mima motions for her to be quiet. With nowhere else to go, they pick lockers to hide in. Very soon, the man has found his way into the room, just as they feared. He calls out how dumb their plan was, and states that he just has to check the lockers one by one. The pair try to control their breathing, and every time the man finds a locker he can't open, he stabs and slashes his knife through the slits that happen to be right at eye level. This continues until he happens to gaze directly into Mima's locker, and their eyes meet. He rattles the handle violently, but Mima puts all of her strength into resisting, and somehow she succeeds. He demands that she open it, or he will cut her face, and while she ponders her next move, her thoughts are cut short as he jams the knife into the locker slits. Nowhere to go, Mima manages to make herself small, but many times the knife comes close to her. She digs for her resolve and finally goes to turn the handle to face him. But then, a crash. Rumi had emerged, and the killer and her stunned each other for a moment. And then the man takes to the chase as Rumi runs, screaming. Once again blinded by the darkness, Rumi falls many times, picking up shards of glass and splinters in her hands, but she keeps going, eventually arriving at the green room near the fire exit. And for a moment, there's relief. She sits down in a chair to compose herself. The man's blood is in pools around her feet from his attempts to skin himself. She takes this time to think over her options. Maybe she can go get help while the man is still looking for her. Finding that the hallway is clear, she decides to run for it. However, she is quickly stopped by a glint in the darkness as a knife swishes in front of her face. The man had found her again. She backs up as he continues to swing at her, but unfortunately she loses her balance, and in an instant, the man is straddling her. He goes to stab, and she grabs both of his wrists, but he's stronger than her. She manages to move her head, getting a small cut on her cheek, and so he attempts to stab her again, but she manages to rock her shoulders and takes only a small cut on the neck, the ensuing blood spurt blinding the man temporarily. One more attempt, but this is interrupted by a splash of light. Tadakoro and Yuji arrive, providing the perfect distraction for Rumi to escape and get to them. The light had been the flash of Yuji's camera, but the man now has a new target. Yuji quickly ducks under the knife and drives his shoulder into the man's solar plexus, knocking the wind out of him. And then, the man falls on his own knife, driving it into his throat. Even so, he rises, coughing blood, and tries to confront the three, but Yuji tackles him again with the shoulder, and the man hits the wall, cracking his skull. Rumi asks if the man is dead, pleading for him to be dead, and Tadakoro and Yuji confirm he's no longer moving. The next thing is to get the power back on and find Mima, who is currently making her way through the darkness. Of course, she didn't stay put, but then she finds that she's floating before crashing into the concrete floor. She must have fallen down some stairs. She takes to crawling on her hands and knees so that she can make sure to find the danger first next time. This leads her to find that she is surrounded by mannequin heads, which she recalls being from a show where a male idol sang with several mannequins. Next to that is lumber, and next to that is an industrial fan, the one used to blow the cherry blossoms on the stage for her debut, Innocence Forever. Thrust into memory, she finally concludes that she's not sorry she became an idol. But then there's a sound. Something is behind her. No matter, she'll keep moving and put distance between herself and it, trying to be quiet as to not give away her location. But it keeps getting closer, until, in a bloody gurgle, it calls out her name. He found her. She can't stop now. The floor begins to slope, causing her to become dizzy, but then it levels out again. Still unsure of where she is, she pushes that aside and keeps moving. Scraped knees and missing shoes, she keeps moving. But something touches her. Something slimy grabs her calf and begins to squeeze. There's no doubt what it is. Mima begins to kick to free herself, and the man's voice gurgles behind her, telling her that she can still make his desires come true. She kicks again and manages to land a strike on the man, stunning him and allowing her to get to her feet. But after a few steps, there's no floor. That slope was the entrance to a stage, and she is at the edge. She decides it's time to fight, right as the man grabs her, and elsewhere, Tadakoro and Rumi have found the breaker. The building floods with light, and after recovering from the brightness, Mima now sees the skinless man before her with the knife embedded in his throat. She frees her shoulders from his grasp, but there's nowhere to go. The man gleefully exclaims about how he's still alive after everything, for one simple reason. He wants her skin. That's what's keeping him alive, and he can't die until he has it. He pulls the knife from his throat and stumbles towards her. Below, Yuji and Tadakoro appear in the basement of the stage, yelling for Mima to look out. She yells to Tadakoro for him to switch on the fan, and so he does. Dust and old paper cherry blossoms fill the air of the stage, and for a moment, the man sees the Mima from her debut. It brings tears to his eyes. She tries to tell him that she understands now, but she's still the same woman. He denies this and insists that he still must cut off her skin, and he charges her. She dodges to the side and trips the man. Once he's on the ground, she straddles him and reaches for the knife, but he reverses the mount, and as his bloody face nears her, she manages to grab the knife and stab him in the shoulder. The two stand up, and despite her desperate threats that she'll stab him again, he lunges at her anyways, and the knife is driven into his eye socket. Mima won't let go of the knife, though, and she wrenches it free, taking the eye and optical nerves with it. This does make her drop the knife as she fights the urge to puke. "Doesn't that hurt?" she asks the man, and he responds, "Of course it does," but all of the pain just kind of runs together now. He picks up the knife and shakes off his own eyeball before stabbing himself in the side as a demonstration. He can't die now. He must have her skin. No more running. He'll make it quick and he'll stab her in the heart. He charges her, declaring that they will be one, and with nothing left to do, Mima ducks, and the man rolls over her back, down to the fan, where it chops the body into a frothy slop. Arms, then legs, and somehow for a moment, the head remained just long enough to call out Mima's name before it was also destroyed, splattering blood on the paper petals and coloring them red like a rose. The end of the Darling Rose.